Hello, this is Darrell Castle with today's Castle Report. This is Friday, the 14th day of August in the year of our Lord 2026. I will be talking about what I believe to be the worst, most difficult to solve problem facing the nation right now. What do you think the most difficult or dangerous problem facing the nation is? Perhaps you would say it's the Iran war. Maybe you think it is the growing menace we call AI and the fear that AI will take all the jobs from Americans, leaving nothing but subsidies for them. Well, those are indeed difficult problems. I will talk a little about each of them. I read quite often from commentators, coming from both the left and the right, that the president is stuck in Iran. There is simply no way out. But I beg to differ. The two sides in the conflict constantly throw insults at each other and make demands. The latest demand from Iran includes a demand for compensation for the damage you Americans have done to Iran. They said the president's reaction to that was, quote, "What? We don't owe you money. You owe us money for the USS Cole and for the lives you have taken," end quote. A lot of the time, when I analyze a dilemma, I use a tactic I learned from Ron Paul a long time ago. That tactic is a moral position that if it is wrong for an individual to do something, it's also wrong for the government to do it. It is illegal for individuals to cheat, steal, and under some circumstances to lie. It is a crime for individuals to lie to Congress, but it is okay, perhaps even expected, for Congress to lie to us. Using that analysis for the war, when I hear people say it started in 1979 when the Islamic Revolution overthrew the Shah, so that's about 46 years, my answer is that no, it began in 1953, or about 73 years ago. That is when U.S. and British leaders, apparently in an effort to gain control over Iranian oil, overthrew the democratically elected leader of Iran, Mr. Mossadegh, and replaced him with Shah Pahlavi, who was out of the country at the time but wanted desperately to return, much as his son does today. In 1967, as a continuation of the Atoms for Peace program, the U.S. began giving uranium to the Shah so he could supposedly develop peaceful nuclear power for electricity, medicine, and so forth, or at least that's what was said about it. In 1979, the Shah was overthrown by a coalition of Islamists, leftists, and of course, students. Once again, as Ron Paul pointed out, they didn't come over here until we went over there. The war between the U.S./Israel and the Muslims grows almost daily. Tells me quite clearly there is a very high price to be paid for being subject to the military demands of another country. I vehemently disagree with the view that there is no way out of Iran. Just tell the Iranians, just tell them we admit we inadvertently, hopefully, attacked a school and killed about 160 little girls. We are very sorry for that mistake, and we will pay compensation to their families. Other than that, we have decided to rethink our Middle East strategy, and in that regard, we are withdrawing from the Middle East and leaving the regions to fight its own wars. What will we then do with the hundreds of billions previously spent on the stupid, pointless war? Well, that will become clear when we get to what the real problem is and how a possible solution might be available. The second problem that many see as fatal today is the ever-growing power of AI. I'll admit I'm no tech expert, and most tech I'm barely competent, but I'll also admit that much of what I read and hear about AI is terrifying. The other day I read that some of the tech people, in conjunction with scientists and or doctors, were using AI to invent new viruses. To me, that's about as terrifying as nuclear weapons. We read that AI is growing in intelligence on its own, and the simpler or dumber, if you prefer, platforms are connecting with smarter ones to learn and improve just as a child would learn from its parent. This is apparently being done without the parent's consent or involvement. Recently, an AI system started hacking into information sources, both private and public. Could AI launch nuclear weapons and start a world nuclear war? I don't know. but I do know it's terrifying. New Orleans, Louisiana is now using AI to answer its 911 calls. I'm sure many cities will soon follow. So AI is becoming ever smarter. Humans, thanks to education and propaganda and social media, are becoming ever dumber. Therefore, AI is rapidly replacing more and more human workers, including those whose work is simply the knowledge they possess. Those who think for a living are perhaps in more danger of losing their livelihoods than manual workers. Soon, many believe AI will take over almost all human creative activities, including writing of all kinds, as well as movies and TV production. Human actors may soon be a thing of the past. The other day, I watched a 30-minute movie. Came out on YouTube. The movie made by a couple of teenagers using AI. It was just about as real as any you might see in theaters, but none of the actors were real. The movie was set in New York City, but it had some AI tales in it, like palm trees in Manhattan, but otherwise was very realistic. So AI is terrifying, but does that mean that our terror is just Luddite reactions to progress? Ned Ludd lived in the early 1800s in England during the early stages of the Industrial Revolution. He led a movement against the rising fear and power of the new machines, which were faster and better than simple labor. Machines were especially prevalent in the textile industry, and followers of Mr. Ludd would go from town to town destroying machines in factories because they thought they could stop progress. Luddites became such a problem for the British government that factories were guarded by troops. Many Luddites were killed. We can't allow ourselves to become Luddites by trying to stop the computers because it will not work. They are coming for us, folks. Our jobs. So the best course of action seems to me to be learning to live and work with them and to use them for good purposes. Naive of me, perhaps, but it seems like the only way. The Iran war and AI are both serious problems, but we have solutions, or at least ways to lessen their damaging impact. The most intractable problem of all is barely noticed by most people and yet is growing and going to destroy their lives relatively quickly. When Donald Trump was elected in 2024, the U.S. empire was in serious trouble and headed for bankruptcy. The era of spend all you want because I own all the money, there is no end to it. That's going rapidly away. It's dying. Without the counterfeit money machine, now probably run by AI, there is no empire. Trump has simply accelerated the process toward bankruptcy to warp speed, which is the opposite of why people voted for him. The federal debt is now very close to $40 trillion, and half of that has been added in the last 10 years or since Trump was first elected back in 2016. Since July 1st of this year, U.S. debt has already increased by $450 billion. Over the last 13 months, it's gone up $3.6 trillion. It is increasing by $7 billion per day, and at that rate, by 2030, it will hit $60 trillion. Who cares, you say? Who cares about that? The people should just give me mine, they say. The people just shout, give me mine, and borrow to pay the interest. I don't care about those numbers. The problem is that very soon, the interest and all that debt will be the largest item in the budget and threatening all the other items in the budget. Currently, about $1 trillion per year in interest is being paid and growing. It's going to destroy the standard of living of our children. The debt has reached an impossible level. That means the U.S. government, and that means you and me, debt slaves for life. That's not even the worst of it, folks, because I'm talking about the effects of this credit-based no-cash economy on Mr. and Ms. America, Mr. Average American. I submit to you that I'm very qualified to discuss this subject because I was a bankruptcy lawyer for 46 years till I retired at the end of last year. I have literally been involved with thousands of people who got in so deep they could find no way out. I became pretty good at helping clients out of financial trouble, and I even wrote a book about it. Just listen to this one example to get an understanding how debt affects our lives and what it's doing to us today. Take a family with husband and wife, both working. They have one child, but they plan to have others. They're doing well. Good job. So they buy a $500,000 house at 6.8% interest. The bank approves the family for the loan and simply creates the money out of thin air to pay the original owner. Then they charge the new buyers interest. The bank doesn't go in the vault and get $500,000. It creates money on its computers, and it has a license to do that from the Federal Reserve. The deal is typically for 30 years, but the nice family doesn't care about that because they can afford the payments. The payment would be about $3,260 per month, not including taxes and insurance. In my city, that $500,000 house would be charged about $1,000 per month in tax plus insurance of maybe $250. So over the 30 years of mortgage payments, the mortgage payments alone would cost $673,000 just for the interest, or more than the value of the home. Real estate on that scale is supposed to provide shelter, not an investment, because so many things can happen to it. The most common would be one of them loses a job, one of the husband or wife loses a job. Payments could no longer be made. They try to sell, but the market is down at that point. Interest rates are up. They are 3 months behind, so foreclosure is imminent. Unlike the federal government or Federal Reserve, the nice family has to make payments with their labor, which AI has probably taken from them, and they cannot just create it out of thin air and take the interest from other people as the government does. I could go on and on with how this terrible problem with debt affects normal people, but I'm out of time for today, folks. In my opinion, it is the worst, most unsolvable of problems for the government. It would take a reduction of about $2 trillion per year just to keep it from going any higher. But that would be a good place to start finally, folks. Finally, I think I could cut $2 trillion from the budget. First, I would cut the $1.5 trillion defense budget by maybe half. Other federal programs could meet the same fate in some way. At least that's the way I see it, folks. Until next time, this is Darrell Castle. Thanks for listening.